And we're going to stay with this and go to Durham to talk to Tom Brooks, who is Professor of Law and Government at Durham University. Good afternoon.
Hello.
When David Cameron describes what he's achieved here as substantial change, do you feel that use of the word substantial is justified?
Well, I think the word substantial is in the eyes of the beholder. I think there'll be people who won't want a deal, wouldn't accept it probably on any terms, and won't find anything substantial enough. I think what's true, looking at some of the finer details that we have, and it has to be said, there is more to come. As Philip Hammond said in your clip, there's some brackets to be filled out and certain wording to be finalized. But I think what we know right now is that there is change happening here. I think a lot of people doubted that there would be any real proposal at all on the table. I think it is an achievement that Cameron has managed to produce this document, have this document drafted. I think the real question, though, isn't so much whether or not it's substantial, but whether or not it's convincing to the British public and to other European leaders, because it is very complex and nuanced.
Yes, and I suppose to really thoroughly understand it, you've got to absolutely go through the nitty-gritty, and as you suggest, there's more to come. And I suppose the point is we're talking about a referendum. How many people who choose to vote in June, if it's June, will take the time to read a pretty lengthy document?
I think that's right, and it is a lengthy document. I think one of the things that's complicated things for the Prime Minister is that there were expectations that were raised perhaps a bit too high before the release of these documents, and some of the reaction from Nigel Farage probably reflects a bit of this, though I don't agree with all of his remarks. For example, we heard things about there'd be an emergency break, that there would be 4 years of no benefits to EU migrants. And it turns out it doesn't quite work like that according to this draft. There'd be a graduated scale. There'd have to be facts and figures produced by the British government to the EU, and then the EU would have to be convinced about the emergency pressure on EU migrants, on Britain's public services to allow a temporary break of up to 4 years, but it could be less. You see where I'm going. There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts to these conditions, so on with other measures like the red card. So I think that there's going to be there's a lot of nuance, a lot of complexity. I think that's probably how a deal like this would have to be brokered, if it is to be brokered at all. A lot remains to be seen on whether or not the other EU leaders are willing to sign up to this deal. But the real big question is, if Cameron can now get other leaders to sign up to any deal, can he present some kind of coherent, direct message to the public to win people on side with this deal? Because I think for the Prime Minister, this is not for him a referendum on whether or not Britain is in Europe as such. He wants to couch this as a referendum on his ability to negotiate on behalf of Britain in Europe. And I think he's got some ways to go on that. And the first day of that was today.
And you and I may be speaking about this, as you suggest, for some time to come. Thank you very much for now. That's Professor Tom Brooks, Professor of Law and Government at Durham University.